The paradox of freedom. All men are created equal. Those words were written in black ink on white paper in the summer of 1776. They became the founding oath of America, a nation of freedom, of equality, of opportunity. But that very same America, only 85 years later, was drowning in blood as Americans killed Americans to defend two opposing ideas: freedom and power. No other war in American history was as righteous, yet as brutal, as this one. The Civil War did not only divide the map, it tore apart the soul of America, between idealism and reality, between conscience and interest. Two worlds on the same land. After gaining independence from Britain, the United States entered the 19th century with two paths. The North moved toward industry, urbanization, and a free market. The South clung tightly to plantation agriculture and slave labor. On the cotton plantations, millions of black people were treated as tools, without names, without ages, only with prices. The whips, the calloused hands, the gasps in the night, all of it sustained an entire economy. But behind that prosperity was a collective sin, one that America tried to ignore. In the North, thinkers, journalists, and pastors began to ask, a nation born for freedom, can it exist in chains? And in the South, the answer was clear: no slaves, no South. Thus, the two worlds grew side by side, distrusting each other, waiting for the moment to explode. Lincoln and the moment of destiny. Amid that political chaos emerged a tall, quiet, rustic man, Abraham Lincoln. He was not a mythical hero, but a realist who understood the limits of ideals. He believed that America could not endure forever with two souls, one free, one enslaved. In 1860, when Lincoln was elected president, the South saw it as a silent declaration of war. That December, South Carolina seceded, then 6 other states followed. A new government was born, the Confederate States of America, with Jefferson Davis as president. At that time, no one knew they were opening the door that would lead America into the bloodiest war in its history. The first shots, on the morning of April 12, 1861, cannon fire thundered from Charleston. Fort Sumter was attacked. In that instant, peace was shattered. Lincoln called for 75,000 volunteers to defend the Union. Within days, the neutral states were forced to choose sides. Friend turned enemy. Brothers took up arms against each other. There was no turning back. War was no longer just politics. It was the verdict of history. Blood and steel, the power of different beliefs. The South had brilliant generals, Robert E. Lee, Stonewall Jackson, men who fought with absolute belief that they were defending their homeland, not slavery. The North had industry, manpower, and economic strength, but lacked spirit and conviction. The early battles, like Bull Run and Fredericksburg, threw the North into confusion. The entire nation was draped in mourning. And in silence, Lincoln began to understand. This was not only a war to preserve the Union, it was a war to redefine what America truly was. The turning point of freedom. In 1862, after a string of defeats, the Northern Army won at Antietam, the bloodiest battle in American history, with more than 22,000 casualties in a single day. Lincoln saw both a political and moral opportunity. On January 1, 1863, he signed the Emancipation Proclamation. It was not just a decree, it was the proclamation of America's soul. From that moment, every bullet fired, every life lost carried a greater meaning: freedom. The war was no longer a conflict between two regions, but a battle between two worldviews. Gettysburg, the price of ideals. In July 1863, General Lee decided to strike a decisive blow against the North. 3 bloody days at Gettysburg left more than 50,000 dead and wounded. Both sides were exhausted, but the North held the line. Months later, on that very blood-soaked ground, Lincoln spoke only 272 words and rewrote the spirit of the nation: that this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom. Freedom, no longer an abstract idea, but a price paid in blood, when the gunsmoke cleared. By 1865, the South was exhausted. The capital, Richmond, had fallen. On April 9th, General Lee surrendered to General Ulysses S. Grant at Appomattox Courthouse. The war was over. More than 620,000 Americans had died. More than in any other war. Fields, towns, and families lay in ruin. Freedom had triumphed, but the nation was nearly broken. 5 days later, Lincoln was assassinated. The bullet ended the man, but it could not kill the idea. The price of peace. The war ended, but peace did not come immediately. The South was impoverished and resentful. Black people were free, but not equal. Former slave owners traded chains for laws. The Jim Crow laws were born. For another century, Black Americans continued to fight, this time not with guns, but with voices, from Martin Luther King to Rosa Parks. The Civil War had ended, but the battle for America's soul continued. Conclusion. America looks back at itself. More than 160 years have passed, and Americans still look back on that war not only with pride, but with humility and reflection. It is a reminder that freedom is not a gift, but a responsibility, to be upheld by conscience, not merely by force. We are still one nation under God, imperfect, but always striving to be more perfect. The American Civil War not only determined the future of a nation, it posed a question to all humanity. What is freedom if humanity is not willing to pay the price for it?